Welcome to Mystics and Mischief.
All things spooky and current.
I'm your host, Barbara.
And I'm your host, Gloria.
Don't forget to like, comment, and follow.
So you can join in the mischief too.
All right, so this was my favorite Christmas story that I have found, The Christmas Miracles. And this story starts all the way back on Christmas Eve of 1944. And for anybody who knows the history of that time era, this was World War II. And this was in the middle of the war in South London. And this little baby who was just born was found by a police officer on Christmas Eve, all the way back 81 years ago in 1944. He was found in the middle of war while there were bombs being dropped and everything. And this baby was sent to an orphanage. He lived in an orphanage for 4 years, and he was later named John. So this is about John. And after the 4 years in the orphanage, John was adopted by a very nice family and raised that way. And one thing he always wanted to know was what happened to his mom, and he wanted to know about if he had any other family, right? And so that's been his wish his whole life. So, moving a little forward in time, just last year, I believe, last year, there was a girl who bought a gift for a Christmas gift for her dad, and it happened to be a MyHeritage DNA test. And he ended up not taking the test right away, but the daughter took one. And so she ended up taking the test and finding out that they had a relative. And this man's name was Lucas. And he ended up agreeing with the daughter and taking an actual DNA test and finding out that John was his stepbrother, and they shared the same father.
His half-brother?
Yeah, he was his half-brother from their dad's side. So they shared the same father. The father didn't know that he was born or that he existed or anything, and the father has since passed, so he didn't get to meet him. But this past Easter Sunday, Lucas and John got to meet for the very first time, and he got to learn about his family and what happened and learn about his father and everything. And so this year will be their very first Christmas together.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
I
almost want to be like, can you guys live stream, please?
I know, so beautiful. I thought it was like so sweet, and plus there's so many connections with Christmas. Like, he was found on Christmas Eve. He was born a few days before Christmas. The DNA test was a Christmas gift from his, niece to his, half brother. Yeah. And then now they get to spend Christmas together. They get to be around each other finally. That's so beautiful.
Oh my God.
That was my favorite story that I found.
Aww. I love that one.
I know. I actually loved it so much that I'm like writing a article about it on my Medium page just so that I can share the pictures of them together. So if you guys want to read that, look up my name on Medium and you'll be able to see that article and you'll be able to see what John and Lucas look like.
That's cool. I'll definitely check it out. What's Medium?
Medium is an online platform where people can write articles, and it's just like a writing platform for people who love writing.
That's cool. Is there an app for it?
Yeah, there is. I can send you the app, or we can show a little picture of the app on the screen for the reader or for the listeners. And okay. I'm going to have it go up the same day that this episode airs on Monday. So they'll be up on the same day.
Cool. That would be nice.
I know. I can't wait. So cute together too, because I saw the picture and I was like all in tears. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
Oh, I want to see the photos. Yeah, we'll have to put those links in. So send me the links. That way I can put them in here.
Will do.
Okay, let's see. Let me get one of my stories. Which one do I want to go? Okay, so this one I'm going to start with was a YouTube video I found by, the channel is by Donnie Laws. just like the law, LAWS. And that's just the name of his channel on YouTube. And the story was called Appalachia Story of a Christmas Miracle in the Kentucky Coalfields. And this took place during the Depression era. And, this is kind of like the set up the same, how, if anybody knows how Dolly Parton grew up, very poor, same thing around there with, like they looked like those old shack houses, they makeshift whatever they could to build a house, basically.
Yeah.
And during the Depression era, there were so many of them. It was such a struggle. But it was about this woman named Elizabeth. They called her Liz back then. And she grew up there poor already, but ended up marrying very young at 15 to this man she met, who ended up starting to work in the coal fields, which back during the Depression era, there was really no safety, much safety, guidelines in terms of mine. They were in very dangerous situations. They had 4 kids, and around where she lived, everybody kind of tried to help each other. Like, they were so poor, but they made things work. They both of them, they made sure their kids, got a Christmas every year, even if it wasn't much. They made sure that their kids were taken care of. People would, neighbors every now and then would, kind of like resources we have today, would go around trying to help each other when they could. Not often, because everybody was suffering during the Depression era, right?
Yeah.
But they tried. And then, unfortunately, her husband was killed in a coalfield mine when it collapsed
Oh,
on
wow.
him. And they had the funeral and buried him a couple of days later. So now, and when they worked in the coal fields, they got a house. Like, they didn't buy it. The companies would have these houses, right? And like, if you work here, your family lives there. But that was him. So when he died, they kicked her and the kids out because they had to make room for a new hire in their family.
Oh my god.
So her and the kids ended up moving in with her mother, which, same deal, not much, but they made things work. It was a lot worse then, of course, because her mom was poor already anyway. The kids, it was stated in this video, it's a very beautiful story, and the man telling it has one of those voices that he could play Santa Claus, right? With that voice. It's a very sweet voice. It's a 17-minute video. But he describes how the kids really, even though they were still little, they had to grow up fast. I think the oldest was 12 and the youngest was, they didn't say, but I'm assuming was little, like 4 or 5 maybe. But they helped their mom. The story was they were great kids and she loved them so much, and they weren't the type to, no, I don't want it. No. They all did what they had to do. Chores, this and that, washing, the kids helped with everything. But again, because of their situation, that coming Christmas, that first Christmas was coming, and she knew already that there was no way she could afford anything. And whereas with her husband, when her dad was there, even though they were still struggling, they always made something work. But she couldn't. She had no way of being able to. When he died, the company gave her very little as a compensation, which didn't last for shit. So by Christmas, there was nothing. Of course, she managed to find a tree, a little cedar tree or whatever is, I guess, what they used to use. And she brought it in there, and with whatever they could find, I guess the kids, decorated it and everything. And that Christmas Eve, she Oh, she actually used to take time to go on a hike every now and then up to this viewpoint. Before this, I think it was the morning of Christmas Eve or the day before, I'm not sure, but she went up there and she just knelt down and prayed to God that, please, please just help me provide something something for my kids. And so that was Christmas Eve. She went down there and they decorated the tree. She fed them supper and she put them to bed. And when they were going to bed, they just kept asking her, is Santa going to come? Is Santa going to come? And she told them Santa's on his way, knowing there's not going to be anything. So, but she told them that anyway, and she felt bad. After they went to bed, she's sitting by the fire and she continued to pray. She just trying to think of what is she going to say in the morning when there's nothing there. What can she tell the kids? She ended up falling asleep in the chair by the fireplace. And then she woke up to somebody knocking on her door. And she got up and she opened the door, and there were few neighbors there that, would check on her every now and then. And they were concerned. They were like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just woke up. I had the greatest night of sleep. I'm fine. Why?" And she wasn't really I guess she wasn't really out on the porch. She was just in the doorway. These people like, "What happened? Why? What's the problem?" And they told her, they're like, "Well, we came up here because," and this is very early morning, and she was like, "We came up here because we could see from over the hill over there, this bright, bright light right over your house. And it sounded like a whole bunch of people singing. We didn't know what was going on. So we came up here to see if you were okay." And they were like, "What was that?" And she was like, "I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't hear anything. I slept great. There was nothing going on here." And that's when she stepped out. And on the porch were a whole bunch of wrapped presents that they didn't drop off, and they don't know who did. And they were things that the kids needed and probably things they didn't need, but there were just some wrapped presents for each of them right there on the porch. And it's the fact that, and this is a true story, that she didn't hear anything, but they were actually concerned because they couldn't describe this bright, bright light right over her house shining, and then hearing this from like away, an echo of like people singing. She was like, and I'm just like, oh my God. Was it God? Was it Santa? I mean, those little things, that kind of magic story, you're like, oh my God, I believe. What I mean? It's just exciting and it gives you goosebumps, but that really happened.
Oh, it's so pretty.
So I love that. So I'm definitely going to attach that. It's a really cute story, and I love the way he tells it with his voice. But that was definitely, like, I think the perfect example of a Christmas miracle. It was just great.
That's beautiful. Oh, okay. So, this story I found on NBCMontana.com. So like NBC News in Montana. And this was about a mother. Her name was Sabrina Wisher, and she had a special needs daughter, and her name was Michaela. And Michaela needed help with, all of everything from her mom. And one thing that she really needed was a bed, like a medical grade bed. Yeah. And of course, insurance did what insurances do, and they denied her claim. And she wasn't able to get what she needed. Well, because the mother knew how it felt to need something for your child, and not be able to get it, she opened this charity named after her daughter. It's she created the Charity of Michaela's Miracles and Blessings. And that very first year, she helped 5 kids in her in like the school district where she lived. Yeah. And she
pretty much granted their wishes and made these little miracles for these 5 children. And as of this year, they now help over 219 kids. And every single year, she helps, provide these Christmas miracles for all these families. And when she finds out about one child, she checks and finds out if they have any siblings, and she makes sure that she gives things to all the entire, family so that all of them can wake up Christmas morning and have these gifts. And, yeah, so she's been doing this for a while now, and it started back in 2016. And she now has a system in place where she works with the schools, and then all the counselors and teachers let her know about families in need, and she goes around and fulfills their wishes. And one of the most beautiful things is it's not even just on Christmas. She does this all year round. So she has backpacks for high school students, and if they need food, she finds ways of getting them food. And she does all the purchasing herself, and she goes and delivers all this stuff to the schools. And she's been helping all these families since 2016, and it's such a beautiful story.
Oh my God, we're definitely gonna have to post a link for like where.
Yeah, I saved the link to both of those stories because I was like, they're so pretty. That is such a sweet, like. There's so much that happens in the world that makes everyone just be like, oh my God, no, everybody sucks. Humanity is ruined. And just hearing these stories about people who literally felt what it was to need something and not be able to get it. And instead of becoming bitter, like so many people do, they use that to help other people. And that's just so beautiful. I'm trying not to cry. Like, I knew I was going to want to cry with this episode. I'm already such a crybaby that now I'm like, okay, don't cry.
Well, because especially now with everything that's going on. And you know what?
Yeah.
Just like, especially the ones back in war times, it's always during the worst of times that these miracles happen. And I think that's why we know they're miracles. They're true miracles.
Yeah. Yeah,
when
it really is.
The worst is just these pathways show up and somehow it happens, and I love it. So it's kind of hard not to cry when you get into this stuff, because everybody's had hard times. This one, it's about a film. Some people might have seen it or they know about it. I don't know. It's called Silent Night. It's a 2002 film starring Linda Hamilton, and it takes place. The movie takes place during World War II in the year 1944. Have you heard of it before?
No.
Okay. This is based off of a very true event. The event itself has other names, I'm sure. But and I'll put the link in there. It is a great Christmas movie. It'll make you cry. The next movie I'm going to tell you about definitely will make you cry. But this is Linda Hamilton plays, I believe she's French. Yeah. Was it around the German ones? I don't know if she's French. No, or she's German. Anyways, they're in the mountains. This was during the Battle of the Bulge. It was American and German soldiers against each other. And this was way in the mountains, very snowy. It was a harsh blizzards hitting. And these soldiers, I don't know who it was first, but I'll say American soldiers showed up. They got lost and they're in the mountains and they're fucking about to die. And they found her cabin and she's there. It's only her and her young son. Right. And how scary that is to have these soldiers to show up and you're way the fuck out there. But she did the Christmas thing to do and she took them in and she gave them warmth, she gave them shelter, and she put rules and guidelines down though. I think it was no weapons, no da-da-da-da, we're gonna, she made clear it's going to be very civil. And she was going to make this Christmas dinner, even though they didn't have much, but she's going to feed them. So she's going to take care of the soldiers, even though they were American. And then some German soldiers that were also in the woods showed up. and they were also in this blizzard, about ready to die. And they found her cabin. So they find this cabin with this German woman and her young son that have American soldiers inside. But she realized if she doesn't take them in, they're going to die. So she told them about the American soldiers, and she was like, I will give you warmth. You can come and we will have a Christmas dinner and whatnot conversation. But she put down the same rules. There will be no fighting, no weapons, no arguing. There will be no, turning them in later or anything like that. This is going to be a Christmas dinner. I'm not going to have my son be put around that. Right. And they had no other choice because they were going to die outside. So they agreed. And in this cabin, in this middle of this blizzard, sitting at the table were American soldiers, and on the other side, German soldiers. And they bonded. They put aside their differences, and they enjoyed the fact that they could relax. They didn't have to worry. They're both sides have families. Both sides have loved ones. They're doing what, they think is best for their country, what they're supposed to do. But they could just relax, put it aside, celebrate Christmas, get to know each other, which they did. And they had a nice Christmas dinner. She made it happen. She made it work. And then when the blizzard was over, because she made it also clear that they're going to leave as soon as it was gone. Because remember too, the fact that she even let those German soldiers know there are Americans there. I mean, normally we hear stories of that she would have been killed.
Yeah.
And her son.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself was a freaking miracle. But because they bonded, the Germans kind of knew where they were. They just went to her house, for her cabin, for shelter. But the American soldiers were lost. And the German soldiers knew they were going to be killed. They're near German lines. So one of the German soldiers gave one of the Americans a map. Gave him his map that showed all the American lines. So they knew exactly where to go. And a compass. Gave him his map and his compass so he can find his way back. They can find their way back. And they did. And so that is a miracle. Definitely is considered a miracle. And it's a great movie called Silent Night. That one is available, I believe, on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime Video, you can check that out. Silent Night with Linda Hamilton. Amazing story. Love it. But that was best.
That's so beautiful. And it really makes you look at all the horrible conflicts in the world, and you kind of think oh, well, there's no way of fixing these things. But I think if we bring people down back to a human level, there's always something that we can bond with. And it's just a beautiful story all around. And there were a lot of miracles in that one situation because in a thing of war, she could have been looked at as a traitor. And they could have very well killed her and her son.
Yeah.
And same with the Americans. The Americans could have been well, we're just going to commandeer your and do the same
a woman
thing.
alone. I mean, bad things could have happened to her if those men were bad men,
Yeah. And it just shows that, even to give the Americans a map to how to get back to safety. I wonder how those men all felt going back to war after. How did it change them? How did they still kill each other or what? They kind of have to. So what happened?
Probably went back and just did their jobs, but I'm sure they held each other in their hearts. And then this next one is called Joy, or I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Joyeux. I think it's French. Joy Noel. Joy Noel. I don't know. But it basically means Merry Christmas.
Oh, okay.
You can find it on Netflix, and it's either going to be labeled as Merry Christmas, but I usually put in the Joy Noel. Again, that's JOYEUX and then Noel. That is a 2006 film, and this is probably my ultimate favorite Miracle Christmas Story. It is based off of true events that happened. An event happened in World War I, on Christmas Eve in 1914. It was around on the Western Front near the city or township called Lens, Lens, in France. There were 3 sides that met at this area, kind of like, where they're all in their trenches on their side and they've been battling or they shoot, but they're staying there.
Mm-hmm.
This was between the French. So the French were there, the Scottish, and the German. Not together. They were all against. So you had 3 countries there trying to battle each other. And this is Christmas Eve. God, I love this film. Being at Christmas Eve, basically, and I don't remember how it started. I think it might have started when one of the sides, somebody in the higher ups back in their headquarters or whatever, managed to bring to them in the trenches these multiple little Christmas trees. Just the tree, short, really little. They just wanted them to have something because they were stuck there. There's fucking 3 countries, but nobody can go anywhere, right? And so I think they started to sing carols, and one of the other sides heard it. They could hear the carols, and they couldn't understand the language. But they were just all sitting there in the trenches and just soaking it in because that made them think of their families and their Christmas. And they could see then, and then the guys that had the Christmas trees, I can't remember if they even had lights or no, they didn't have lights. But I think they had candles is what they used to use, right? Well, I think one of the other sides that heard ended up joining in on one of the singing. And so they had the idea, what if we, their family, like they're just like us, right? They're in the same situation and it's Christmas Eve. They're not with their families either, and they don't have anything. So to kind of share in their Christmas joy, they've ended up putting their Christmas trees just on top of the trench. And they continued to sing carols. And then the other side, one of the third side, joined in. And they got the idea. Some of the whoever was in charge, the captains or lieutenants or whatever, the officers, ended up meeting. They ended up having this truce, like, okay, no, we're going to meet in the middle. We need to talk. And they did. They met in the middle and they made a pact that for today and Christmas Day, the rest of Christmas Eve and today, we don't fight. No fighting. We can come up here and sit, play. They had a ball. They would play soccer, or they called it football, but it was soccer. And that would give them time. They can, they can bury their dead because they all had dead, right? And they agreed. So they made this pact and all sides were for it. So they took the time. They were able to safely bury their dead appropriately, get medical aid. And they bonded as well, to the point that they were sitting together. This is all during Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, they're playing soccer with each other, playing games, playing cards, singing, drinking. It was like they were all buddies. Just these 3 sides And then Christmas Day was over. And they had to go back their own ways. And they did. But that movie, and I'm not giving it justice. That movie, it was just so special. With the three sides, the way they just, and you could tell the officers, the three main officers that were in charge of each one. The movie, you see the cover is the three officers together, side by side, just walking and talking. In the background, you might see soldiers, but they bonded very well. And I think they might have, some of them or people that were involved there might have kept in touch as well. So that's another movie that definitely a lot of people should see about a true event.
And like, you see all these conflicts and there's so much war and hate. And I say, if we could just bring it back, to like each individual person and look at the humanity that we all have. Yeah, we're all different. Yeah, we dislike a lot of things about the other people. But just looking at a human level, all of us want basically the same thing. We want to be able to exist without fear, without war, without hurt. And to hear a story like that where there's this conflict of three different sides and they're able to put that aside, it's just such a beautiful story.
Right. And that's like the worst anything could possibly get, right? They were enemies in war against each other in the fucking trenches during winter. It sucks.
Like literally in the trenches.
The worst situation a human being can be in, the darkest that it gets, is you're in war, shooting and killing each other. And they did that. For Christmas, for each other, for themselves. This is from the channel that's called Is God Active? And it's labeled The Wrong Fuel Turns into Christmas Miracle. And this was, I think he's a pastor or something. I'm not sure what his label is, but his wife, it was during Christmas, I think it was Christmas Eve, and they were driving down the highway. She was with her kids. Her husband was out doing something else. And she passes by this van with these couple of men that it just passing by, you're not going to stop with a couple of men. They looked kind of roughed up, I guess, not really upkept, kind of dirty, crappy van. And she drove by and, they were always taught, never pick up a hitchhiker, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when she passed them, she just had this feeling. She couldn't, like God, something was telling her, you need to turn around, just turn around and see if they're okay. That's it. So she did. She turned around. She went back. I think the kids were a little concerned, but she turned around and she asked him, are you okay? And they ended up, what it was, they ran out of gas. It was this man and his brother. They ran out of gas. So she's like, okay, hang tight here. I'm going to go and get you some gas and I'll be back. Just hold on. So she ran home, which was only, I guess, like 5 more minutes away. She dropped off the kids. She went into the shed where they have their gas cans, what do they call them? Jimmy cans or something like that.
I just thought they were called gas cans.
There's gas cans, but there's another word for it. Jerry can. I think it's jerry can. I'm not sure. I hope I'm not wrong. Otherwise, it sounds really funny. But she grabbed the red one, which is always supposed to be, I know, for gas, regular gas. She dropped off the kids. Off from there, she took her oldest son with her and took the gas back to the guys, put it in their tank. And she was like, I'll follow you, to town. So they started to go, and it was not long. They did not get far. It was like just starting when the freaking van broke down again, just boom. And so they pulled over, and they're like, I don't know what's going on, but she knew, and a really good mechanic that, was in town, which they're not far from. So they went back, the mom went back, and I think, the husband was there at the time. He ended up showing back up, and she told him, these gentlemen are there. I took him the gas, and then it broke down again. And he was like, which can did you take? She's like, the red one, because they had red and yellow, and the red ones were always supposed to be regular gas. But in this instance, he had put diesel in the red one. So they put the wrong fuel. these poor guys' shitty van that is now, right, when you put the wrong gas in, not going anywhere. So she went with her husband, and they ended up having the truck towed to the mechanics in town, which wasn't far, and they took them to this shelter that they could stay at in town as well, and dropped them off. And so they were going to stay there for, I don't know, a couple of days while the mechanic was going to work on and get it fixed for them. This lady just effed up their van, right? And they have nothing. So they end up going back home, and they're setting up for Christmas, and they have like a small, house. So it's not a lot of room, but her whole family was over. So it was all her family, and, they were going to celebrate, and she's had this sick feeling again. She's like, I cannot handle them for whatever reason. They're just in this shelter. It's Christmas. She's like, I got to do something for them. They need a little Christmas. So she made some Christmas cookies, and she told her husband, she's like, I'm going to take these to the shelter for the guys. And she says in the video, she was kind of nervous. Like, she was a little scared because this shelter was kind of intimidating, just cold, bare, and nothing but guys. Right. Yeah. She was a little nervous, and I think she had some of her kids with her, whatever, but she found the guy that she was talking to, and she gave him the cookies, and he was like so surprised, that, oh my, she's bringing us cookies. He was so, like, this awesome, like, okay, thank you. The lady went back home, pastor's wife, and then it still kept getting at her, and she's like, this isn't right. I can't get rid of this feeling. She's like, so she talked to her husband. She's like, I want them to come over for Christmas dinner, for Christmas Day. And right away, he was like, absolutely. So they ended up sending them the invitation, letting them know you're both invited on Christmas Day. There's going to be food and family and games and, all this stuff, and left it up to them to decide. And then the other brother, the one that she had never really talked to, didn't want to. He stayed behind, but the brother that she was dealing with, yeah, I'll come over, and he came over, and they had the best day. They had one of the best Christmas days for everybody that they had ever had. Everybody got along. They had such fun. They played so many games and had so much food. It was that magical Hallmark Christmas everybody wants, right? That you dream of, that you probably dreamed of when you were growing up.
Yeah, probably.
That's what happened. And then he went back, right? And Christmas Day, he went back. The next day, they're gone. Time goes by. 2 years later, there's a knock on her door, and she answers it. And there's this gentleman that just looks, she describes him as he just looks amazing. His hair is all done in style. He's got on these nice clothes, these like good looking glasses. It's just this man that's manicured, and she's like, hi. And he's like, I guess you don't remember me, but I was here a couple of years ago. You took me and you had me over for Christmas Day. And then she was like, oh my God. It was this guy. It was the guy. And he was like, I had to come back and just make sure that that you changed my life that day. Come to find out, he was an alcoholic at that time. The 2 years prior, he was alcoholic down his, so his brother, they had nothing. And he said, that day you changed my life because you showed me what I could have. And that's the day that I stopped drinking.
Oh.
And he got a good job, and he got a good family, and he had kids, and he had this nice new truck there with these nice clothes. He's like, you gave me a life. I have a life like that now. And it's because of you. And I was like, oh my God.
That's so sweet. But I always wonder, like, you know, you never really know what you do, how it affects other people, right? And I've always wondered if is there anything I've ever done, like one small act of kindness that just changed somebody's life.
Yeah.
And to be able to get that confirmation back to her that like her just being herself and showing this person the love that they probably never felt, you know, just being a kind person, how she completely changed his life. That's just so beautiful.
Yep. He was just
God, I'm
looking
such a
good.
sap. I want to cry all the time.
It was a beautiful story. And that's what it was. It was like the wrong fuel. You know, that was a miracle. Who would know? The wrong fuel where she just jacked up their van of these two
Yeah,
poor
and
guys.
that's what I was gonna say. Like he could have looked at it totally different. He could have been like, this person messed up my car. F them. But he didn't. He took her invitation. He enjoyed his time with her, you know, and then he changed
Yeah,
her life.
and what if she didn't go around? What if she didn't turn back?
Yeah.
You know, so their van breaking down, running out of gas was meant to be her having that feeling. I got to go back to the Christmas cookies at the shelter to just inviting him just for a day to celebrate. Change that man's life. And he created a life for his kids. I mean, oh my God.
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
Ah,
Christmas miracles.
I know. It's so nice. Oh my gosh. Those are all
Yeah.
great stories.
Right? I love all these stories.
I know. I love them. So
Merry Christmas.
not Christmas related, but I actually wanted to bring something up that I saw today. I was taking my kids to school. And, well, I guess backstory. Earlier this year, a police officer from our small town of Bloomfield, New Mexico, was murdered while on the job. And we passed the spot where he, you know, had this incident every time I take my kids to school. And today, that road where he passed was blocked off. And the officers of the town and I believe the surrounding areas were all jogging together in remembrance of him. And it was just such a beautiful memorial to this man who lost his life serving the community. Actually, I have a video of it. I'll see if I could send it to you so you could insert a clip, but just to show, you know, that even when people are no longer here, that they make such an imprint on each other's lives. And I think that we forget so often how important each one of us are, you know, like we are always, so many of us diminish our own value and we don't know that what impact we have on others. And to see that, you know, this officer who lost his life still had such an impact on these people, that so many people wanted to gather together just to remember him, was such a beautiful act of humanity. And I just wanted to bring it up because it felt very Christmassy to me, you know,
That was
just
beautiful. That was beautiful. And that was
that
this morning.
beautiful.
That was
Yeah,
this
this
morning.
morning. Uh-huh.
Mm.
It was such a beautiful sight. And it was so sad. Me and my daughter were just instantly cheering. We were just like, oh my God. And, you know, it's a small town. So, of course, we all care about each other, even if we don't agree with each other. And so I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was so beautiful.
That is beautiful.
It really gave me the Christmas feels of that, you know, that humanity, that love, and that belief in ourselves and others.
I'm praying. I know we're not in the wars like these World War I, World War II, but I really think we need some kind of miracle to change things around. And I hope that happens.
Yeah, I think that's why this episode is so beautiful, because it really does just touch on how there is still humanity in each individual person, even in the worst of times, or when you think things are not going to be able to happen, or how even some of these stories, you know, like that man John who was left 81 years ago, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Like our lives can be impacted from something from so long ago, and our entire world can change.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people right now, especially in our country, are so focused on all the negative things happening And I think we need to, obviously, yes, deal with those things, but we really need to look at ourselves, look at humanity, and start building the world or the country that we want instead of focusing on all this stuff. There's a lot of complaining and not enough people doing actions. And instead of complaining, we need to decide what area, in what way can we individually make a difference, and how can we help our communities? You know, let's bring some humanity back.
Thank you for listening. We hope you liked this episode.
You can follow us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram.
And iHeart, Audible, and Facebook.
Join us next time for more mischief. Okay, cool.